Rev up your engines!
Well, it looks like gasoline prices will probably start going up again. The EU is imposing a $60 a barrel cap on Russian oil, saying you can't pay more than $60 a barrel for the Russian oil, right? Now, I thought they were going to ban Russian oil, but you know how that goes. Talking through your hat, words mean nothing, follow the money. Now, they passed this law, right? And they say it's designed to keep Russian oil from flowing to countries like India and China. But India and China haven't signed on to this thing. They're not part of the EU, right? Gary, the Chinese signed some big deals with Russia to get their oil. Chinese need oil. China doesn't have much oil. They got a lot of coal, but they don't have oil. And you can turn coal into oil if you want. Germans did it in World War II, but it's a very inefficient process, wasteful, pollutes a lot. So they'd rather get the actual oil than have to turn the coal into oil. So I don't think China's going to agree with any of this. Now, this nonsense that they talk about. They talked big when they invaded, when Russia invaded Ukraine and said, oh, we'll ban the Russian oils. Well, they're still using it, obviously. They're just putting a cap on how much they're going to pay for it. The one ace in the hole that they're playing. They think this is going to have global reach on stopping the Russians because, as it stands now, Russian oil importers rely on insurance coverage for a company based in the EU. They're supposed to ship in the Russian oil, and you can't pay more than $60 a barrel. They're still shipping the oil. This is the funny thing, you know? It's so much BS. They talk about, oh, we'll ban this. They're still shipping the Russian oil. As usual, follow the money. Don't follow the baloney of the politicians. See what's actually happened. They're buying the oil. They want oil that's coming in. And if they put some kind of a ban on it, it'll come in some other ship. Now, Russia, of course, has turned around and said, well, then we just won't sell you any oil that has this cap on it because India and China, they said that they're not going to agree with it yet. Why would they cut their own throat for oil they want? So they just figured out the Russians will rely on tankers that they're using, and they won't use the Western insurance. They're insuring the oil to make sure it's get there, right? I mean, because they're businessmen. It's not that often that these tankers are blowing up and stuff, right? And I imagine if it was in a war zone and somebody blew up a tanker, the insurance companies say, well, you're in a war zone, we're not going to pay for that. You know, insurance companies like get out of stuff. So this is a very weak attempt by the Europeans to stop it. Yeah. They're still buying the oil and shipping the oil, right? They didn't cut any of that off because there's too much money involved. Follow the money with these people. So obviously our prices of oil and gasoline will start coming back up in the United States as the Europeans pretend to ban Russian oil. They'll just go through somebody else. These politicians sit high and mighty in their ivory towers, right? They don't know what the heck's going on in the real world. The Biden administration, they're saying, we need to use more ethanol from corn. Not realizing that, of course, it is like a 26% net loss system making ethanol. You lose 26% more energy than you gain by the end product, so it's stupid. You're putting more energy in that you get out. But, oh, it's green, it's ethanol, let's do more. They're idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. Fruits All Project says, my car creaks after I got new tires. When I turn the wheel, it creaks real hard. They replaced the right inner tie rod while getting tires. They said that they had a really hard time getting the tires off. They were rusted on. What could have gone wrong? They had a hard time getting the tires off and they hammered stuff. They could have bent something. They could have damaged the bushings. Cars don't have grease fittings. When I was a young mechanic, they had grease fittings. When you got your oil change, we had grease guns. We'd grease these. They're called Zerg fittings. You put the grease gun on a fitting, you'd grease each one. Some cars would have 16, 18 grease points, and they didn't creak. But today, they're all rubber bushings, and the metal goes through them, and as they age, they will creak. Make sure there's no damage. Jack it up, look at the wheels, pull on the tires, make sure they don't wobble. But if it's just a creak, you can get that AT205 reseal that I talk about, which is a polymer that rejuvenates rubber. Or if you want to just do a fast, lazy one, you can get a big can of that spray WD-40 for suspensions. Spray all the rubber bushings. Look, see if they're cracked or broken. If they're broken, you're going to replace them. But if they're not, and they're just making noise, spray them all. And if the noise goes away, you can keep spraying them with WD-40. Or, like I say, the better thing is AT205 Reseal, a company called ATP Products Chicago makes it. And when you put that on, it rejuvenates the rubber, and you don't have to keep doing it over and over and over again. You just have to do it once. Valita96 says, my OBD port works, but it only reads ABS and nothing else. It's a Lexus IS250, 2006, 150,000 miles on it. You have a problem either in the computer, in the wiring, going from the computer to the sensors, or in the sensors themselves. Very complex stuff, the way those things are made these days. If you get a short in the computer, it'll do that. One part will work, the other won't. If you get a short in the wiring, the same thing can happen. Or if you have a shorted out sensor, the same thing can happen. Now, computers cost a fortune on Lexus, but unless your car is wrecked, flooded, or stolen and damage was done, generally the computers are pretty bulletproof. I rarely ever change. I've only ever changed the computer in a Lexus once, because I didn't do much wreck work, so I don't get ones that are wrecked where they get shorted out. I just ones that wear out. I did that on a 1994 one that was just old and the computer did go out, right? What you can try is start unplugging sensors one at a time. And if you unplug one sensor and all of a sudden you get a lot more readings than just ABS, that sensor or that wiring going to the computer's got a problem, and start there. Often unplugging one at a time. When you get to the problem area, all of a sudden it will start reading. That's the best thing to do. Other than that, you're going to have to go to a mechanic like me. And if you've watched my videos, I got that big old fancy scan tool, right? And it'll show like 379 points of data. Guess what? I got to go through all those 379 points to find out what the heck is going on with it. It gets very complex, but you can unplug things one at a time. If all of a sudden it starts to read, the one you unplugged is the system that's got the problem. Okay, Sturt says, help, Scotty, who do you recommend in Houston to rebuild my transmission? I got a 2018 Silverado. Unfortunately, you got a 2018 Silverado. I tell people, don't buy those things. They're crap. The transmissions stink. And you found out, it's what? It's a 4-year-old vehicle and the tranny's gone already, because they don't make them like they used to. Unfortunately, the only guy I know that knew what he was doing on those things retired, and he doesn't do it anymore. Jim Shine, he was a great guy. As a matter of fact, he's dead now. You're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I find those modern transmissions, hardly anybody knows how to rebuild them, and you are better getting like a factory rebuilt unit that comes with like a 2-3 year warranty and go that route, because I found the guys that rebuild them no longer know what they're doing anymore, because they are so complex and they have a hard time getting anybody to work at those places anymore. The workers don't get paid enough, so they don't get really highly skilled people. So the people that they do have aren't that good at what they do. So it's a combination of lower quality mechanics, more complex machinery, and it creates a gigantic mess, of course, because people who don't know what they're doing are working on complex stuff that they don't know how to fix. Sad but true. You're better with a factory rebuilt with a warranty than you're having some clown try to rebuild that thing. Jim was the only guy I knew that was really good at it. M. Hub says, I got a Toyota Corolla with alternator noise. 2009 Corolla. Started to make a squealing, hissing noise coming from the engine. I listened to it and I can see noises coming from the alternator, and I'm getting a low battery warning. What should I do before buying a new one? Well, don't do anything, just buy a new one. When the battery light comes on, it means your alternator isn't charging. When I was young, it made more sense. It didn't say bad, have a picture of a battery. It said alt for alternator. When that light comes on, it means the alternator is not charging the battery. Doesn't mean the battery's bad. Just get an alternator and replace it now. Whenever you hear noises coming from the alternator, it means the bearings are wearing out inside and you don't want a chance at breaking on the road. It's an 09 Corolla. It's got one fan belt that breaks. Everything goes everywhere. You can't drive the car. So just do it as soon as possible and get a quality one. Don't buy cheap. Don't go to the auto parts store and give me the cheapest one. No. Buy their most expensive one, especially if it comes with a lifetime warranty. Then you'll never have to buy another one. That makes the most sense. You don't have to go to the dealer and buy their ridiculous ones that are $500, $600, $700 or whatever. You can go to auto parts stores, but buy their quality ones. Don't buy the cheapest ones or you'll regret it. The cheapest ones aren't made that well. They're usually either rebuilt in Mexico or cheaply made in China. You want one that comes with a really good warranty, and you're going to pay probably $100-something bucks more, but it's worth it. Legend says, I bought a used Honda Ridgeline. Do you think it's smart to trust a timing belt sticker under the hood? It's been 5 years and 20,000 miles since it was replaced. You can get a Carfax of the vehicle. That will have your state inspection information. And if you see that's the real mileage, because in the last 5 years, it's only had 20,000 miles, that's 4,000 miles a year put on, believe it. I put less than that on my car in Houston when I lived there. So, hey, go ahead and believe it. But you want some information that that's real. Somebody could put something and make it up. But if you see in the last 5 years it's only gone 20,000 miles, yeah, you don't need to touch it. YouTuber Rob Block says, where can I find a flasher related to a 4-lane dump truck? Problem with dump trucks are they don't give me data, because I'm not a commercial repair guy, right? I don't do commercial stuff. I do people's cars, their light-duty trucks, stuff like that, motorcycles. But I don't mess with dump trucks. Go online, look it up. Somebody somewhere is probably going to sell them, especially if you look at Hemmings Motors online. Hemmings Motors, people sell everything there, and they'd probably be able to find one for you. Now, as for where it's hiding, it's probably in a dash somewhere, but I've never worked on one, of my information system doesn't give data on big dump trucks. But Hemmings, I guarantee you, somebody somewhere there will be able to find one for you. You can get parts for anything ever made practically there. Randy Cox says, Scotty, must you change all 4 tires on a hybrid because it's 4-wheel drive? I got a 2022 Toyota Venza LE. Well, yes, in that case you do, because that is an all-wheel drive vehicle. It's not a 4 four-wheel drive vehicle. Now, all four wheels drive, yes, but if you got a four-wheel drive, you can drive it on two-wheel drive just in the back, or you can put it in four and run all four. But yours is all-wheel drive. They're all working various percentages depending on what the computer decides to do. It's a very good system that Toyota has, but it's very complicated. And if you don't have the exact same tire on all four wheels, if one tire is bigger, one tire is a little smaller, it'll try to compensate for that, and that will wear your expensive transmission and transfer cases out. So yeah, all-wheel drive, you have to buy all four tires at the same time if you don't want to wear out expensive transmission stuff early. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.